What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL Live. Joined as always by my main man, Jonathan. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Man, it's been a good week so far. Looking forward to the rest of the week, the practices, the Shrine game in a couple days, and no playoff football this weekend though, unfortunately. But other than that,
Yeah, no playoff football, but we definitely got a ton of football. As y'all can tell, I'm not surrounded by my normal rows and rows of hats. Um, I am in a different location. I am in Mobile, Alabama, taking in a Senior Bowl, which we'll definitely talk about, here on the show tonight. Um, but yeah, decent drive down here. I had to correct myself a handful of times by by not going about 90 miles an hour. You get on them empty Alabama streets and like the interstate, man, and before you know it, you're doing 90, and it's
oh yeah,
crazy.
I have the same problem sometimes just with like if I get certain songs that just come on the
Mhm.
radio, I'll just next thing I know look down, I'm doing 75 and a 45. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, no doubt.
calm down.
That's it. Well, without further ado, let's just get into it, John. All right, man. We got all kind of things to talk about uh, today on the show. I guess we could start off with the first topic on the list is the playoff, man. This past week's playoffs
Whew.
were an interesting one, to say the least, right? You
Yeah.
have what appears to be like ultimate domination by Philly against, San Francisco, but when you look further into that game, like it wasn't necessarily utter domination, right? I know that sounds weird, but when San Francisco's down to their fourth string quarterback at one point in time
Yep.
because their like somewhat phenom third string quarterback gets essentially an ACL for his elbow. We come to find out it was a UCL injury,
Mhm.
which is basically having like your elbow, like the ligaments in your elbow just blow up. So, uh, that happens early on in the first quarter. Like I'm talking within like 3 or 4 plays of San Francisco
Yeah.
being on offense, and so it happened pretty quick after um controversial opening touchdown by Philadelphia with Devontae Smith. No, is it Devontae Smith?
Yeah, it was
Devont.
that. It was Devonta Smith.
Yeah,
Devontae Smith was the guy that had the crazy catch that they should have overturned, but wasn't.
right. Whoever is supposed to give, Kyle Shanahan a heads up that maybe you might want to challenge it, he probably got his like keister reamed because they definitely and you could tell Smith knew it because he gets up and he's giving that signal like,
Hmm.
let's run a play. It's questionable. Like if I'm on, if I'm a spotter or whatever for San Francisco and I see him jump up and start doing this,
Yep.
I'm telling my guy to throw that flag, you know.
Yep.
Now, granted,
Well, if you see them doing something like a big play that's a crazy catch, you don't even have to necessarily see a guy doing this. Even if you don't see that, but you see everybody on that offense rushing up, like, hey, let's hurry up and get a play off. Then obviously they're thinking like, you know, this may not have been a thing.
right,
Uh,
right.
so
So for the fact that they missed that, and it was just a snowball from there. You miss that, your quarterback goes down, and you're working with your fourth string quarterback, who then he goes down, and you have to bring your third string quarterback who ain't got a throwing arm back
mhm.
in. And so yeah, it was a full on like beat down for San Francisco. As far as as far as that went. And so that wasn't all that entertaining of a game. I mean, if you go look at Jalen Hurts' stat line, it looks like a Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ritter stat line. It's like 15 for 20 for 151, no touchdowns and a rushing touchdown.
Yep.
So it'd be interesting to see how they're going to match up with KC, which is the next, playoff game that we need to talk about. Now that one delivered. It was like a good game, in my opinion.
Yep. And
what
were
your thoughts?
And there were I agree with you on the first game. I think that if Brock Purdy had been able to stay in that, or even if Josh Johnson had been able to stay in the game, I think they had a better shot, because once Johnson was out, once Purdy was, and Purdy came back in, but literally couldn't throw the ball more than like a yard or two down the field. Right. But it was, so once that happened, they knew they could clamp down everything super short. Didn't have to worry about getting beat over the top, and stuff like that. But, so if you'd have had either one of those guys stay healthy, especially Brock Purdy, then I think there's that's a much closer game than the score would indicate, because their defense was doing well against that Eagles offense. But at some point they finally found a weak spot. By the time they could figure out a way to, potentially adjust to that, the game was kind of already out of reach at that point for them because of injuries and so forth. So I definitely agree that, like, the scoreboard looks like they just boat raced them all day long, and that really wasn't the case. That the Eagles are a good team. They are very, very not trying to take away from the win, but it wasn't this super crazy crazy beatdown. But then Kansas City and Cincinnati, that game I was on the edge of my seat. A lot of the talk afterwards was about how bad the refs were, and they were, but not necessarily for some of the things that a lot of people were focusing on. Mm-hmm. Like, we got people today, I saw earlier today, that are basically saying, like, we really need to look into the roughing, the unnecessary roughness penalty. That shouldn't have been a penalty at the end. I'm like, that was textbook.
Yeah, I mean, that was textbook, dude. You don't touch any player, much less a quarterback who's already out of bounds. There was no room for him to make any more progress. You had successfully walled him off.
Yep.
And he went out of bounds. You didn't have to touch him.
Yep. And he touched him. It wasn't like he touched him like as his foot was coming down out of bounds. Like, no. That kind of situation, even if they did call it, and that I've seen that called, where literally his foot like touches the paint and almost immediately he gets hit. I've seen that called. I don't think that should be called, but it does get called. But I would understand people crying about that. This was, he had one foot down and the other foot had already come down, and then the push happens. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit of a push. Doesn't matter if it's a lot of a push. You pushed him out of bounds. That's unnecessary roughness. But, like, there's just nothing about
all day long. Yep.
Yeah.
Fred Butts tipped us $2, which we appreciate. He says, I think our defense is about to get stupid good. There's a chance, and we're going to get into that topic, but I didn't want the super chat to get too far out before we called on it. And same thing with Woon Carter. He tipped us $2. We appreciate that greatly. He says, rise up pound for pound. Rise up. That's exactly what we are attempted to do here. Sorry. One thing I want to, let's see. Willie says, glad you made it safely, JR. Thank you very much.
Yep. Absolutely. Otherwise, you guys would just be looking at my face, and nobody wants to do that.
Sorry about that. I'll be choked up. Um, but no, what I do want to say, and the reason why I put that up there is like if you do catch some, like me getting a little robotic or whatever, or my signal kind of getting the I'm not on my stable like home internet, so we're
Yeah.
gonna see how it goes. So far, so good, but we'll see how it goes. Um, but yeah, it was interesting because like now I say this for the folks who think that the NFL is rigged. The Chiefs game didn't help that,
No.
because of all the storylines that it sets up. Because going into the Chiefs game, obviously you knew the Eagles were going. So now you have, Andy Reid against his old team. You have like one of the highest paid QBs, against QB this like second round pick, still on his rookie
Well,
deal. A lot of
and
people
and the
questioning.
yeah, and the first time two black quarterbacks are playing in the Super Bowl against
Right.
each
You
other.
got like you get that storyline. You get the two Kelsey brothers storyline. So like
Yep.
in that aspect, there's a lot of storylines in this game that doesn't uh like I said, that doesn't help the whole people who think that the uh NFL is rigged. I'll say this, at the end of the day, it's a moneymaker, right? I'm
Yeah.
not saying that it's rigged, but if it ever came out that it was, it absolutely wouldn't surprise me. But I
Well,
think there's just way
so
too many moving parts.
like I know some people may not like him, but I watch the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah.
I like it personally. And they've got, obviously Pat played in the league. They have guys on there all the time that played in the league. They got AJ Hawk played in the league. They get guys on all the time, and like some people are like, well, you make millions off of the NFL. It's like, but they're also they literally this year paid them like $4.5 million to be able to use their footage on their show.
Yeah.
So it's not like
Exactly.
they're getting like all this money from the NFL. They make money off of talking about the NFL.
Of course.
But their whole thing is like nobody wants nobody right now wants this narrative of the NFL's rigged, like less than the NFL and the gambling, the sports gambling companies, FanDuel, those people, they don't want it either.
No,
Because the last thing
that
they
hurts.
want is, that last thing they want is for somebody to think like, well, why am I going to bet when you already know what's going to happen? Like
Exactly.
that's, so at the end of the day, nobody wants it to be rigged. The NFL doesn't want it. If they were going to do it, first of all, they're only in, I think it's like 20 states right now that allow sports gambling.
Right.
And so, but as this opens up more and more, like that money that they're making off of sports gambling and just the general popularity of the NFL, you get all the way out to, they're looking at like 40 something states in the next few years that's going to have it. So if you were going to do it, why do it now?
Yeah,
Like
I literally just saw that clip from McAfee saying like if you
yep,
were gonna rig anything, why would you rig it now? Why
yep,
wouldn't you if you're gonna claim somebody to be smart enough to like rig games like this, have that
mhm.
many moving parts, be on the phone with like refs during the game and it not get leaked, right?
Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
And like if you're going to go through all that, like why not wait until you can capitalize and get the most out of it, right?
Yeah, and the thing is like the one of the points, and I've heard this from other people, not just on this show, but like humans just as a rule, we are bad. I mean, really bad at keeping secrets.
Right,
Real
exactly.
bad.
Yeah,
Like it is
exactly.
hard to keep a secret. And so if you had something like literally we're rigging every game. And we don't even say every game. We'll say just the big games. Even if they were doing something like that, the amount of people that would have to be in on it, there is no way on God's green earth that every single one of them wouldn't tell somebody.
Yeah, then yeah.
Or at least
So
one person out there wouldn't say somebody. So, like, whenever somebody wants to talk about this rig, it's always the team that lost. And granted,
yeah, right.
that
At,
that
I'm,
we're
at
going to
the
get
end of the
into it in
day,
a little bit, but
right. At the end of the day, what you're talking about there, like in the fourth quarter, Burrow had the ball twice.
mhm.
He had the ball twice in the fourth quarter, ended in an interception and a punt.
Yep.
Like, you drive the field and score a touchdown, then ball game, baby.
Yep.
And at that point in time, you had the superior talent. You can't say that you didn't.
Yep.
You have Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins, you have Tyler Boyd, you have Hayden Hurst, you have Joe Mixon,
P. Ryan.
P. Ryan. Like, you have those guys.
Yeah.
Like, stacked up talent wise on the offensive side of the ball, you're outstripping Kansas City almost player for player. The one thing you didn't have, though, was a Chris Jones and a way to stop him.
Yep.
Because that dude was a man on a mission. An absolute
Game wrecker.
Yeah. Like he said, all right, home. He's like, he looked over at Pat and said, all right, dude, I get it. You hobbled. You got one leg. I understand, man. I'll handle it from here. I'll take this thing. You just don't make a mistake.
Yep.
Like, you just don't throw the ball. Like, you just don't give us a back-breaking interception or nothing like that. He said, I'll wreck the game on the other end. And, buddy, that's what he did.
Yeah,
Like,
he did.
He turned into a one-man wrecking crew, and that was fun to watch in that aspect.
Yes, it was. And it's just like, it's going to be interesting to see that defense, because that defense is not as good. I don't think, like, on paper, is not as good as San Francisco. But that what I see with Kansas City is they don't always necessarily seem to match up well against teams, but in big games, that defense always comes through, and at least generally keeps it close. Is not going to let it get out of hand, so that Mahomes, maybe with 2 weeks worth of rest, can be a little bit more mobile, and can be a little bit more of the old Mahomes. But man, it just, like, knowing what he was knowing what he was going through with the pain in his right foot. Not like, if it had just been his left foot, it was his plant leg, and be able to still throw the ball like that.
Yep, it was crazy. All right, Willie Doc is in there with his ballers and fallers predictions. So let's go ahead and move into that.
All right.
Willie tipped us $5, which we appreciate, and now the segment has, for the past 3 or 4 weeks, have been brought to you by Willie Doc and his $5 tip. Yep. We appreciate that. Right. It says, Ballers, the grittiness of Mahomes and Hurst disproving naysayers, the fallers, Asaya on his penalty, the health of the San Francisco quarterbacks, and thanks for the great content. Thank you for the tip, Willie. All right, let's see, who do we have for – hold on, let me get this banner out of the way. All right, let's see who we do have for our baller. Baller. Bam, you had it partially right. You had Patrick Mahomes and his hobbled leg playing on one back leg. Definitely our baller this week, because like, you could tell the dude was hobbled and he was still throwing dots, and he was still making plays when it had to happen. And on that play where he ran out of bounds, it's like, I think he got up to like 18 miles an hour on that bad leg, which is crazy.
It was the fastest he ran all day long. He was like, I need this. Our team needs this. I'm gonna it's the very end of the game, or hopefully the very end of the game. So he just went all out, tried to give everything he could. And, unfortunately, Osai couldn't hold up, and the rest is history.
That's it.
So,
all right. So definitely our baller is Patrick Mahomes. Our faller is down. The refs. 'Cause, man, like, come on. That was bad. Granted, now I'll say this: they did get the one call actually right, with the offensive lineman, like, not actually holding the defensive lineman. And it was like something me and you had talked about. It was like a rule I didn't even know. It was like one of those obscure rules, because the defensive lineman used a rip move. It wasn't a hold.
Yep.
And so that was actually a correct call on that one.
Yep. Well, I saw that on Twitter. Mike Tice talked about it. Jeff Schwartz talked about it. Some other dude actually pulled up the rule book, highlighted the spot where it said this. And essentially, when you see a guy, because I was the same way. Like I look at a play, and you see that time when an offensive tackle usually, but sometimes guards or whatever, they get a guy and they have him and they have their arm around their neck, and I've seen that called, but I've also
Right.
seen it not called, and I'm like, what's the difference? Why call it that time but not call it that time? And turns out that if, like you said, if he uses a rip, then when they are allowed to then have their arm up there as long as the defensive player is not past your offensive player,
Right.
your
If
offensive
the
lineman.
offensive lineman can keep him at his shoulder and
Yep.
can keep him parallel, then it's not holding, which is insane. Not insane. It's just I never realized that.
Yep.
And Jonathan, Willie Doc would like a demonstration of that rip move again, if you could. There it is. There it is. Okay. So, yeah, like that was something that I thought was, and the one, like, if you folks who do get on Twitter, y'all should follow Nate Tice. He does a real good job of like breaking down plays and stuff like that. And he was the one that actually put up the NFL rulebook and highlighted where it wasn't a hold. But like, I will say this: you can't leave it in the ref's hands, like ever. As far as the game goes. But they weren't good. You know what I'm saying? Like, we should never be talking about the refs like this. And I think, in my opinion, refs, if players have to stand there right moments after the game and answer questions about a play in a game, a ref should have to do the same thing. A ref should have to stand there and take questions. Like the head ref should have to take questions from the media and explain a blown call or what have you, or a missed call. Or we need to know what kind of like accountability or grading system. Because if we could have all that, then we could quit blaming the refs. If we knew like how these guys get graded, how they get disciplined or what have you. All we get right now is the weak apology letter.
Well, no. So there was. So they do this. I don't know if if this happens every game. I'm assuming it does. We just don't really hear about it all that much. But there is generally a pool reporter that will go and talk to the refs and be like, "So, what did you see on this play?" Now, the answers they generally give are basically like, "This is what the rule is. This is what we saw, and that's why we called it."
Right.
A lot of times it doesn't necessarily say like, the rule book says this, so when we looked at it we saw that, and this. They don't go into like huge depth about it, but there is a pool report after the fact, and they did that for this particular game, and like the intentional grounding,
Right.
which I can see somewhat, but like the guy was like almost 10 yards away from the ball. He didn't throw it even in his direction. It was like he should have thrown it this way if he was throwing it at there, but he threw it like here. And then it was not, didn't get past the line of scrimmage, which may or may not necessarily be a big thing. But essentially, that's what they said. They said, like, look, there was nobody within the area, like
Right.
within, he was like 7 or 8 yards away, I think. And he threw it down. He like purposely threw it down to avoid a sack, and it didn't make it to the line of scrimmage.
Right.
That's what they said, and I can see that absolutely.
Well, there it is, folks. There is your ball, like your second to last baller and faller for the 2023 season. We got just one more with the Super Bowl incoming. But yep, that is your baller and faller, Patrick Mahomes, as
My
the
bad.
that look at you undoing what I'm doing. Anyway,
Yeah.
you got Patrick Mahomes as your baller and the ref as the faller. So go ahead and move into our next topic, which is our new DC. I put out a video on Friday talking about our new DC. And but this is the first time we've gotten to do it live, right? This is the
Yeah.
first time we've gotten to talk about it live. And so the new DC has landed in Sin City out there with Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot and the rest of the coaching staff that is out there. So he's taking in the Shrine Bowl players. And today it got announced finally that we did actually hire Jerry Gray as our defensive backs coach and assistant
Well,
head coach.
technically, he is. I'm sure he'll work with the DBs, but
Yeah,
technically, his assistant head coach, DC or something like that.
is it?
Yeah, that's what I thought I saw.
Can you pull up the announcement? Because I know assistant head coach was. I was at the Shrine Bowl, or not the Shrine Bowl. I was at the Senior Bowl practice when that news broke, so I hadn't really gotten to like dig into it other than to be like, okay, cool, we did finally hire him, which is great news. Pairing a very experienced Jerry Gray with a not so experienced DC in Ryan Nielsen. So I was glad to see that pairing, but I knew that
Hold on.
they had attached an assistant head coach uh, label to him. So did you get it pulled up?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
You got to be faster than that, bro.
I know. I'm trying.
Okay. So
Assistant head
assistant
coach slash
and
defense.
defense. What does that even slash defense? What does that even mean?
It's what my guess is. My guess is, and I think I saw this actually somewhere on Twitter. So, and I agree with this. The reason why they gave him this title is it makes it tougher to, it makes it easier for them to block.
To
Him going
block him.
somewhere else.
Okay, that makes sense. So you give him the assistant head coach slash defense title, and it's not a upgrade for him to be a DC somewhere.
I think so. I think that's the case. Yes.
Okay, so that does allow. Okay, that makes sense. That allows him to block a quote unquote lateral, or not lateral, but block a move. So okay, all right, I like it. I mean, I like the hire. I'm glad that we hired him. Uh, Jerry Gray is a very well respected coach, and so I am I'm very glad that he's on staff, especially with
Mhm.
Nielsen not ever calling plays at an NFL level. I did find out while I was in a space chat that it apparently Nielsen was like, because he was co DC in this past year in New Orleans.
Mhm.
But even before then, he was responsible for coming up with pressure packages and coming up with the stunts and the blitzes and stuff like that they were going to employ. So he did do some like game planning. It wasn't just I'm the D line coach. It
Yeah.
wasn't just trying to get the guys ready. He did do game planning, which makes me feel a little bit better about him, taking a step to the DC level. All right.
No, you're fine. But yeah, absolutely. Like I just look at it this way. Like if you go back, and I'm not going to rattle it off the top of my head, but I know that I have either listened to or I read somewhere like the list of like places he's been, the guys he's coached, the results he's gotten. This guy, like my understanding is that like 2019, maybe 2020, the 2020 season, Ed Ogeron wanted him as their DC.
Right.
And Sean Payton wouldn't let him go because he was thinking like maybe if we lose Dennis Allen, this guy would be
Right.
the next in line. And so yeah, like he is well thought of in NFL circles as an up and coming defensive coordinator, up and coming coach for especially for defensive coordinator. So,
Right.
I'm not like, I don't know every little tidbit about this guy. I know that the day that this happened, you went on to if you went on to like the Saints Reddit, their subreddit, they were like, well, crap.
Right. Yeah, they were very unhappy that, he took the job, and even, Cam Jordan tweeting out that, he was happy-ish for him. The fact that Cam Jordan even like thought to mention it, says a lot. So yeah, that's I'm really interested to see what the structure of the defense is going to look like. Like, are they just going to try to recreate what they had in New Orleans? Like with the, like coverage wise, like split safeties, a lot of like cover three, a lot of single high safety, uh, a lot of man coverages. So like, and then somebody said earlier, I think it was our buddy Chris. Yeah, I'm going to put this. This is not what he said, but I'm putting this up anyway. He says going after CJ Gardner Johnson and drafting Christian Gonzalez sounds real nice. Yeah, because he made a comment like, "Are we ready for an influx of Saints players?" And that's possible. Like when Frank Bush came here and Ted Monachino and all those guys, they tried to bring in a few of their guys, but we haven't really had a huge influx of like past players from
Yeah.
like in this particular time around. So it'll be interesting if they just have an archetype that they try to build. Do they try to find a Cam Jordan? Do they try to find an Onumata uh, type player? Do they try to find a Demario Davis? Like, so it'll be interesting to see like who we bring in, free agent wise. But
Yeah.
I'm glad to have this settled. And I just also saw today that Al Holcomb will not be retained by the Panthers under
Yep.
Frank Reich. So I think he's a D line coach. So I'd be interested, or a linebackers coach rather. So I'd be interested because we let go of Ted Monachino. So I'd be interested if they bring in, because they interviewed Holcomb, if they try to bring him on staff as well.
Yep.
Uh,
But yeah,
speaking,
like well, I was just gonna say, like
yeah,
CJ Gardner Johnson. If we were to go after and bring him in here, at the very least, he's been in Philly for a year, so he can get some of that, stanky
stank
town.
off of
Yeah, get it off of him a little bit because he's been filtered through Philadelphia. So
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Uh, but speaking of coaches, we had two more dominoes fall in the coaching carousel. You had Sean Payton go to the Denver Broncos for a first and a second, first and a
I
second,
think it was a
or
second. That
first.
was what I was reading earlier. I haven't seen if that was confirmed or not.
But the interesting tidbit is like they were up to the last minute. Were trying to hire D'Amico Ryans. They were trying to hire Jim Harbaugh, and they end up giving up draft picks to get Sean Payton. So if Sean Payton wasn't your first choice, so you give up draft picks to secure your third choice, that doesn't seem like a good business model if you're Denver.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. Look, I'll say this: if Sean Payton can get Russell Wilson back to, yeah, so it was the first, so first
Yeah,
this year and a
and a
second
second
next
next year.
year.
Yeah.
So, but if Peyton can get Russell Wilson back on track somewhat, there's enough talent, especially at wide receiver, stuff like that. They can get some weapons.
Oh yeah. I
I
mean,
don't know if they're, I don't, and
they
their
got
defense is
Javonte
still really
Williams.
good.
Right. See, I think the defense is why they were trying to go after D'Amico Ryans. Like maybe they felt like the defense was the strong suit, and like he could keep that thing going. Uh, so it'll be interesting to see who Peyton nabs, because there was a rumor that if Peyton did get a gig, one of the guys that he might try to bring over was Ryan Nielsen. So
Him or I know he was tied to Fangio for a while
yeah, but
too.
Fangio ain't going back to Denver.
Well, he's already in Miami now, so.
Well, that's not
Or
fully confirmed.
well, okay, so yeah, I did see the I just saw it today where it's like kind of
Right.
the ink hasn't been put to paper just yet.
Right. If I had to call it right now, I say Fangio ends up back in San Francisco with the 49ers. If I had to call it right now.
Maybe.
That's just my guess. But following up on that, obviously Fangio would end up in the 49ers only because D'Amico Ryan gets hired as the new head coach of the Houston Texans.
Good for
which
him, man.
is a great hire for him. That's where he played, I think, his entire career, or the vast
most
majority
of
of his
his
career.
career at the very
I'm
least.
not 100% sure on that, but that's where he, garnered like the vast majority of his career was with the Texans. So now he takes the past 2 years of experience of coaching the best defense in the league and takes it to the Houston Texans. Now he's got an uphill battle, and I really, really hope that McNair is willing and ready to actually let him build, because
Yeah.
2 years in a row firing a coach one and done, like other than
Yeah,
the
you
fully
can't.
guaranteed contract, I'd be hard pressed to take that job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now, like, granted, hey, if I go out there, do the best I can in the first year, and things don't quite work out, and you fire me, and I'm still owed $45 million or whatever it is, and I could go and rest in Cancun for the next 3 years and still get paid. I mean, that's not a horrible
It's not a
situation to be
horrible
in.
deal, but man, and I'll also say this, like if he fires a third coach, one and done, like
I mean,
there's
you're
gonna
the Cleveland Browns at that point.
oh my God. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
So uh but I think that pretty much covers the coaching search
I
stuff.
I want to wrap this up by saying that I am excited by the new DC. Granted, I was excited about Dean Pease, and that didn't quite work out, but that's a different situation. Dean Pease was working with a really bare cupboard at the time, whereas I think Nielsen's going to be able to add, do some of the grocery shopping to put things
Right.
back in the cupboard. So he's going to have a little bit more of an opportunity, I think, to not only be a good coach and run good schemes, but also add talent to those schemes to make those schemes actually successful.
Right.
So I'm excited about Nielsen. We'll see how it goes, but I am excited about that.
Yeah, I am too, because Blizz says road to 60 sacks starts now.
I
I
don't.
mean, that's
I don't like if that happens. I don't even know if I would survive. I would literally probably be like, "All right, you can take me, God," because
done.
we have a defense. That's all I wanted to see, man.
Right. Fred adds up. I think the Falcons go pass rush with their 8th pick. It's going to be interesting to see,
Yeah.
because I want to hit on some of these comments before we move off this topic. Chris says, Catavia Street, Passignon, Anyamata, and Ellis are 4 names to watch in free agency. Those all, played with the Saints. It would not surprise me one bit if they don't retain Rashad Evans, and Ellis and Anyamata make a ton of sense. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I don't think we touched on Frank Reich getting hired in Carolina.
No,
So
that was kind of an in between thing.
yeah, that was in between. So that's an interesting hire. I think Frank Reich's a good coach, but he's got a long way to go as far as like the offensive side of the ball, which is what he specializes in. So kind of like D'Amico Ryans, Frank Reich was the Panthers' inaugural quarterback when that franchise expanded. So he has some history there. So it's an interesting pairing. Pantera says Sean Payton was Denver's first choice, but draft picks forced Denver to go second and third choice. Second and third choice turned him down. So went with Payton. Okay.
See,
And if that's the case, like they were linked to Peyton early. I can see where he gets that. They were linked to Peyton early on, and maybe the compensation wasn't what they wanted to give up.
Yeah.
And then after nobody else snapped up Peyton, the Saints may have lowered the compensation to a first this year and a second next year.
Yep.
Like they definitely wasn't going to do the deal without getting a first this year, because they didn't have a first. They traded it away.
Yep.
So
what is Denver's first year this year, by the way? What are they?
I think it was
Where are they at?
In the 20s, I think.
I know they gave up a lot to get Russ.
Right. And I think the pick that they got was from Miami, I think. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, I'd have to check into that. All right. Let's move into the Shrine Bowl standouts. Dun, 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 dun. as our new DC is chilling out there in Sin City, chopping it up with Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot and everybody else, he has had a chance to. Okay, it's the Wavy is saying it's the 30th overall, and it's from San Francisco. Thank you,
Oh, okay.
appreciate that, Wavy. But so he's had a chance to check out some of the guys at the Shrine Bowl. Now, obviously, I can't go out to Vegas. That's a little too far for me. So it's like a really expensive plane ride to Vegas or a 5-hour drive to Mobile. Mobile, here I am.
There you go.
So he's out there in Vegas. So I did get virtual access. That's what I was trying to go with. I did get virtual access to the practice film. So I'm able to, in my leisure, sit down and watch some of the practices. And I'll tell you this, you can definitely see the Falcons offense like all over the blueprint of the offense is all over their practices. Like the formations they're lining up in, Arthur ain't trying to hide nothing. It's like, hey, can you run my crap? You know? So that's interesting to see. But some of the standouts have been Dante Stills from West Virginia. He is a defensive tackle that they have lined up at tackle and end. And he has been almost unblockable. Like not completely unblockable, but he has had a lot of really good plays. Another standout is like head and shoulders above everybody else is A.T. Perry, a guy we touched on in
not
our
film, but I saw some clips of him and he looked good.
Yeah, and like he's a guy that we touched on in our All-Star game, like our kind of preview show that we did not this past Friday, but the Friday before. And A.T. Perry has looked really good. So and he is on the Falcons coaching side of the practices.
Nice.
So they're getting an up close and good look at A.T. Perry. My only concern is he still doesn't look like he wants to be physical, like especially in the run game.
Yeah.
Which may like turn Arthur away in a sense, but as far as like being able to run routes and separate and 6'4" with a very long wingspan, like the catching aspect, definitely what you want.
So, like for somebody like that, if I'm Arthur Smith, it all depends. Like, for one, does he, from day to day, does he look like he's at least trying, and what have you? And if at least he looks like he's trying, now whether or not he's succeeding or not necessarily does that matter, right? For me, it's all about, is he trying to do it, and just maybe he just needs to put on a little bit more muscle, or what have you. If he's trying to do it and he in interviews and everything else, like he shows a willingness to do it, then I could see Arthur Smith taking it. But if he's just like, I'm a receiver, I go out catch balls, that's what I do.
Right. If he's just mailing it in kind of deal, that might, it'll be interesting to see like, where he ends up going. I really like receiving wise. I really like what I'm seeing from A.T. Perry out there in Vegas. The other standout was, I don't remember his name, number 99, I think it is, a big D tackle out of Texas. If you're wanting a space eating D tackle, he is definitely showing to be that. Which, depending on like where we go defensively, we may not be looking for that anymore. Because as Chris points out here, getting pressure with 4 will be a sight to behold. So
I really don't care if it's 4, 5, 6, as long as we actually get the pressure. But yes,
right.
I would love to be able to get pressure with 4, and then when we can do that consistently, then bring 5 and get even better pressure.
Right. So like this guy seems to be more of a space eater, So, but if you're wanting a like pass rushing DT, then Dante Sills out of West Virginia definitely should be a guy on your radar. And our guy Jose Ramirez has looked pretty good.
Really?
He's won not as many reps as he's lost, which
Okay.
it's a step up in competition competition for him, coming from Eastern Michigan. So
Yep.
that's kind of what you want to see. I haven't gotten to see the last 2 days of practice, so I want to see if he's made progress. Because those kind of guys who are stepping up in competition, you want to see, like, are they making progress day to day?
Right. Well, because then
So
it kind of mirrors your like a game day experience where you may come into the game with a certain strategy, with a certain, like, this is how I'm going to play it initially, and then you try different moves and you try this and that and the other, but you're also checking to see, like, what's the other guy going to do against it? What's he, how's he going to try to counter it, and then how do I counter off of that? How can I set him up? How can I do these different things? And so if you see him day after day get a little bit, do a little bit better here and there, then at least that gives you that same impression of, like, I'm running, I'm seeing what this guy's doing, and I'm adjusting and adapting to what they're doing to me.
oh yeah, exactly.
And so, but I also saw some clips of some, like, offensive tackles and a guy they moved into Mauch.
You talking about
Uh,
the Senior Bowl, Cody Maul?
Oh, is that the Senior Bowl?
Yeah. Which we could go ahead
Okay.
and jump into that. We could jump into the Senior Bowl practices, which was the first practice happened today. Your boy was live. I don't know if you could tell, but your boy got sunburned. Okay. I know it's 60 degrees and cloudy and rainy in Georgia. My guy, it was hot and it was sunny, and I was not prepared for it.
No, you were not. Yeah,
I
it's
was
almost as
not.
red as my rosy cheeks here.
Yeah, man, look at this. It's like, man, come on. I look like, whoo. Anyway,
Oof.
but we could start with Cody Mao, because Cody Mao was a guy, like, some of y'all might have been on Twitter noticing who this guy was. He was the offensive tackle for North Dakota State University. He's the one that a lot of people put, like, starting picture and then ending picture, and it almost looked like a completely different guy. He's missing front teeth, real long
Yep.
hair, almost look like a hockey enforcer. And so that was good fun on Twitter. But today we got to see him, right? And in North Dakota State, he was a left tackle, I believe. Yeah, left tackle.
Yep.
But here at the Senior Bowl, at least this first practice, they had him lined up at guard, which is what he projects to more of in the NFL. Is a guard. He's not as big. And even in this practice, he got better as the practice went on, which was
Nice.
encouraging to see.
Yeah.
Me and a couple of guys snuck over to the scout side of the Senior Bowl practice, and we got to sit, like, in the end zone. Like, when you see the one-on-one,
Mhm.
like, between the D line and the O line from those practices, we got to sit right there. And little side note, we were 2 rows in front of 2 Falcon scouts. So that
Ooh,
was cool. But like
fancy
Cody
over
Mao
here.
had, what's that?
They're being fancy over here.
That's right. That's right. Being fancy. Uh, Cody Mao had like I said, a couple, like, rough reps, but part of me wonders if that has to do with, like, position shift,
Yeah.
like, because it's a little bit different working inside the phone booth. But as the day went on, he got better. My big standout offensive line wise, he did not disappoint today, was Darnell Wright out of Tennessee.
Mhm.
I only saw him get beat one time. Any other time, like, he straight up, he was quick off the line. He looked like an SEC offensive lineman.
Nice.
Same deal with a couple of the Georgia. McClendon was there. I think it was
What
McClendon.
about,
Will McClendon.
was it Broderick Jones? Was he there?
I didn't see Broderick Jones. I'm not sure. Like, if some of these guys who are, like, he may not have been a senior, because I think you have to be a senior to be invited to the Senior Bowl.
Gotcha.
So he might not have been a senior. If there's any Georgia fans who can correct me on that in the chat, let me know. But some of the other guys who were standing out, let's see. Uh, Rasheed Rice, another guy we talked about in
Yep.
our warm up to the
Preview.
Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl. He looked really good. Like the quarterbacks don't look good, so it's really hard to tell if you think the receivers are going to look good. But he was burning people off the line and getting open. So those were wins in my book.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Now he was the guy that I thought, uh, when we looked at both those guys, those are the two wide receivers
yeah, A.T.
that we had
Perry
looked
and
at.
Rasheed Rice.
Yeah, so Rasheed Rice of the two, I like A.T. Perry's like physicality, like his like physical, and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Long arms,
Yeah,
tall, wide wingspan.
but Perry, Rasheed Perry came off as somebody that could definitely be much more of a compliment to a guy like Drake London, maybe a guy who's a
Right.
little bit more shifty,
Yep.
yeah, and so forth. And so, like that kind of receiver, I would really like to have the guy you could put into the slot, and he can do the little 5 yard button hook, the choice routes or whatever, the little shallow crosses, the speed outs, all that stuff that like you can that basically Tom Brady made a career out of. Like he had
Exactly.
either whether it was Amendola or it was what's his face,
Wes Welker. You
Wes
had
Welker,
Amendola, and you had
Amendola,
Julian Edelman.
Edelman. Yep,
Yep.
all three of those guys were basically like these. And, I don't care if they're white, black, doesn't matter to me. But at the end of the day, he had a guy that was literally just like he was super quick.
Yep.
So when he would just go out and like shake a guy because it was hard to stay with them, and that was just like we need 5 yards right now. Go out
And
and
Rasheed
do your thing.
Rice, like he has, I think he had a high like contested catch rate,
Mhm.
which is something that Arthur looks for. That was
Yep.
one of the major things about Drake London was his ability to win the contested ball, and Rasheed Rice his physicality like lends itself majorly to catching those uh, contested balls. He doesn't mind getting up in a corner's grill in the run game, or like I said, like yeah, you play press coverage on Rasheed Rice at your own risk. Like he invites that contact, and like he wants to get in there and get dirty with you, and that's something that I can respect. And
Yep.
he stood out today quite a bit. Had a slight scare with Kenny McIntosh. He went down, the running back out of Georgia, but Tom Pelissero uh, tweeted out that it seemed to be just cramps, which is great.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
you
If
know,
it was as
I
hot as
made
you were talking about, I could
right.
see that being an issue with some guys.
Right. I made a bad joke. I was like, "Oh, hey, maybe we could get him in the sixth," and everybody around me groaned. And I was like, "You're
Yes.
right. You should definitely groan for that bad joke.
Yep.
It was a bad,
That is
Uh,
that is a bad taste, sir. You
yeah,
have
well, it's
sullied
bad
the
timing.
name of pound for
Sometimes,
pound.
yeah, right. Sometimes you swing, sometimes you miss. You know what I'm saying? It happens. Uh, but uh, the kid out of Wisconsin, the D tackle, Keon, Keanu Benton. He was very
Yeah.
impressive. He had a really good day. Hopefully, he'll continue. Will McDonald had a pretty good day. Won a couple reps. One of them against he was the only one to beat Darnell Wright. So that was encouraging to see there from a smaller guy. Andre Carter, on the other hand, the pass rusher out of Army, he did not look good today.
Yeah,
He had a
I saw
rough.
him get yeah, I saw him get like pancaked twice
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, he got like every
From
time he was out there, he got worked.
oof.
Uh, So I'll be interested because he's another guy who's taken a step up in competition.
Yep.
Like he's from Army. Like he didn't go up against the Darnell Washingtons or the Will McClendons, like the SEC tackles. Like he didn't go up against those guys. He won with straight speed from a wide nine stance. When he was in Army. So can he actually beat a tackle? Uh, that's something
Well,
that
I'll say this: a guy that's that kind of smaller speed, like the real big speed guys. I don't know if we're going to have that because my understanding is Ryan Nielsen likes the more prototypical defensive end, the
The big
265,
beef. Yep.
275, 280, that size guy, which makes me believe that there's some people that are saying first round. I don't see that happening unless something super crazy happens. But this the Georgia Tech guy, Keon
Keon
White?
White. Now, yeah, Keon White had a real good day today.
Yeah.
Like he was rushing from inside. They had him lined up outside. So he was another guy who I'm really keeping my eye on because he's a freak athlete as well. You talk
He's
about
like six,
290.
he's like 6'2", 6'3", 280, 290.
Yeah, he's a big dude, and like there's clips of him running stride for stride with running backs out of the backfield.
Mhm.
So like he's a guy that I'm definitely keeping my eye on as this Senior Bowl continues to go on. Now I will have like kind of like a wrap up video probably out on Friday, either Friday or Saturday about the practices and stuff like that. So there was a lot of encouraging stuff, and I just want to see some of these guys like build on that stuff as the week progresses. All right. Well, you've now hit the time of the show where we definitely want y'all to ask your questions. We're trying to like do a little bit of a different format, so don't think that we're ignoring chat. So I'm going to start with Tony Wright. He said, "What about signing a free agent quarterback Jacoby Brissett as the backup to Desmond Ritter? He has proven QB, can win games when needed, and he's a team player. He is exactly the kind of guy that I would love to bring in, especially if you're going to go with Brissett. If you're going to lock in with Ritter,
Yep.
Brissett's a great guy to come in. Now, news broke today that it's looking more than likely that Lamar Jackson is going to get tagged with the exclusive
Yep.
franchise tag.
Which
So
means you're gonna have to trade for him.
for the most part, that kind of puts a kibosh on what you have to give up because I think it's 3 first rounders or something like that on an exclusive free agent.
Well,
Exclusive tag.
my understanding is the exclusive tag. It's the non-exclusive tag where somebody else can try to sign him
Right.
until he
Right.
signs the tag, right?
Right.
They could try to sign him if they sign him in that situation, and then Baltimore would have the opportunity to match.
Right.
If they don't do that, then the team signs him, but then they have to give up, I think, 2 first round picks. That's the
Something. Yeah.
non-exclusive. The exclusive means that nobody can mess with him, nobody can touch him.
You can't negotiate. You can't do nothing.
You can't do anything. The only way that we can get him now is either at some point they just take the tag, they basically just release him,
Right.
or he ends up. We could negotiate with the team in a trade, and it'd be like a sign and trade situation.
Right. Right.
So
But for
that
the
would be how we would. But now that's the more as crazy as it sounds. That's going to be the more expensive option
oh
for
yeah.
other teams because now Baltimore could set the terms. They can say, "I want this
5
year's
first
first, next
rounders or
year's
whatever.
first,
Yep.
this year's second, next year's second, and a first from 2025." And if nobody goes for it, then nobody. Then it
Right.
kind of leaves Lamar himself kind of floating out there with no. He doesn't have nearly as much leverage in
Not
this.
on the exclusive rights. He doesn't.
Right. Right.
Okay. John Higgins says, "Hey, pound for pound, what's happening? Haven't seen y'all in a while. What's good? Glad to see you. Glad to see you here, man.
Good to see
What's
you,
good
John.
is we just talking about this team, talking about
Yep.
what we got to do what Jarvis Murray says. Do we got to start speaking Super Bowl, not rebuilding every season? I agree, but you got to build a team to eventually get to
Yeah.
the Super Bowl. So right
Yeah. I
now
mean,
we're
you're not.
in team building.
Yeah, you're not gonna go from what this team is this year. I mean, look, could everything just work perfectly like for excuse me, like for Philadelphia?
Right.
Like everything they wanted to do, they did, and it all worked out, like injury wise. They were able to do the things the guys produced, all the stuff they wanted to do. Everything worked perfectly for them, and now they're in the Super Bowl. Um, could it work for us? Sure, it could. But the chances of us, like the realistic expectation, is not, hey, let's make sure that we do everything we can to go to the Super Bowl in 2023 or
Right.
2024.
You're
It's
I
just
mean,
that
you're playing
let's
for
let's
23.
get to yeah, let's
Yeah.
get to winning record. Let's get to potentially winning the division. Let's worry about that first. Let's win the
Right.
division because you win the division, you're in you're in the playoffs. Once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yep. Exactly. 100%. And I hear what you're saying, not rebuilding, they're reloading. They took some major swings. Philly took major swings, trading away assets, uh, going with a second round QB. It's like they took some major like risks, and it's working out for them. And hey, awesome.
Yeah.
Good to see, and hopefully our swings will start working out for us. There's a million different ways to build a team. You
Yep.
can look at LA with Stafford and all them. They won their Super Bowl, but the following year everything fell apart. Now,
I mean,
can they pick up the
yeah.
pieces? So like I said, there's a lot of lot of risk involved. Bug puts it
It,
very good here. She says big risk equals big rewards. Exactly.
absolutely.
So
But I mean, if you go back 2 years, they drafted Jalen Hurts a couple years ago, or was it? It may have been longer, but a couple years ago is when he got his first action.
yeah,
It was
not
it
this
was the
year, but the year
last.
before. Right.
Yeah, it was the last. It was the last 4 games.
Yep. Last 4 games.
Didn't look all that great.
Had
Like,
people wondered were they going to draft a QB, going
yep.
into the offseason, all
Then
that
they
kind of
come
thing.
out
So
last year. Yeah, then they come out last year and like they looked okay. They didn't look Super Bowl. They didn't look like they were anywhere close to being Super Bowl bound. And then, like you said, they took some chances. Hassan Reddick, like that guy had played for 4 years in Arizona. Nobody expected what Hassan Reddick is doing now to be what he is.
right.
They saw something. They took a shot at putting him as an edge rusher,
Yeah,
and
he's
it's
a
worked out handsomely for them.
right. He's a tiny edge rusher. So that's an
Yeah.
interesting thing. Dre Murphy has some people just don't have the patience. Rome wasn't built overnight. It's going to take some time to get things right and together to get a Super Bowl. First, we got to make it to the playoffs.
Yep.
I hear exactly what you're saying, Dre Murphy, but I can truly feel like what Jarvis is saying. Like
Yep.
we've had what 4 or 5 losing seasons in a row now.
Yeah.
Like people are just tired of seeing us lose. And I
Yep.
get it. Absolutely 100% get it. So I get the frustration. I get can we quit talking rebuild? Can we start talking Super Bowl? But unfortunately, right now, we just ain't there yet. Like realistically, every move that this regime has made so far is made with 2023 being hitting the ground running kind of thing.
Yep.
Like, but that
And,
doesn't
and
mean Super Bowl 2023. That means,
yeah, I know.
okay, we're finally starting to, you know, climb up out of the freaking pit, climb up
like
out of the hole.
there have been so many times where a lot of I see a lot of fans, both Atlanta Falcons fans and other teams fans, that are like, we really need to like hit the reset button. That's what we did. Like, this was a true reset. Like,
Oh, yeah.
let's get out from the big time contracts that we got. That's going to take the 2 years to get us out from under that.
Yep.
Do the best we can with what we can in the time that during that time frame. And if we are competitive and we're maybe winning a division, or at least scrape in by the skin of our teeth as a wild card into the playoffs, who knows? But the goal was, these first 2 years have been about getting us out of the financial hole that we were in.
Yep.
And Terry Fontenot has already talked about this. He's already said, like, look, yeah, we have money now. Yep, Millie, absolutely. We have the money now, right? But that doesn't mean we're going to go crazy with it. They still want to be disciplined with the
Yep.
money that they have,
They're
not
not trying to
just
be Jacksonville or the Browns.
Right. Well, they're also not trying to be the Falcons of the past that gave out ridiculous like overpaid contracts for
Dante
guys.
Robinson.
Yes. Uh,
Edwards. What was it?
oh
Ray
my
Edwards.
God, Edwards. Oh my God. Woo! Bringing me back, man. But yeah, there's been like that's the biggest problem that we've had is we have overpaid guys, and then we've put that, and that ends up putting us behind the eight ball. Yeah, you could, everybody talks about, the cap doesn't mean anything. There's all kinds of tricks, and it's all a myth. Like, look, at the end of the day, can you do some things with that? Yeah, you can, but you can't do the major overhaul that we're trying to do without lots of cash up front, which is what we're going to have this offseason. And we want to try to maintain that so that we're not expecting to have anywhere 50 to $80 million every single offseason.
Right.
But you want to have enough that you can go out and make, get everything settled, and then it's like, okay, we just need this or we need that,
Yep.
and we can have enough money that we can go get the best talent we can possibly get without overpaying. And that's the way we want to be going forward.
Right.
So
Noe says, with the division wide open and Brady gone, I think it would be the perfect time to trade for an elite QB. I mean, I understand. I get it. I really do.
I mean,
Like,
yeah,
I don't,
absolutely.
but I would tell you, man, elite QB is like, you want to be one and done in the playoffs? Like right now, with the way the roster that we have, just take Kansas City right now. Okay. They don't have a great offensive weapon. So you could say, oh, well, JR, like the elite QB just took them to the Super Bowl. Yes. But also look at what they have on the defensive side. They have Chris Jones. They have George Karlaftis. They have, really good defensive players that have been able to balance that out. They also have Travis Kelce. So
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. If somehow they decide that Lamar Jackson is, because he's the only one I'm entertaining right now as
Right.
an option.
Well,
he's the only,
but also, yeah, but also it's like, this is the time, and I'm not trying, like, look, I get the sentiment here. The question is, or the statement is, it's time to trade for an elite QB. Okay. Who are the elite QBs? You got some people will still say Rodgers. Who knows if he's washed or not? We don't know for sure.
sure did
Brady,
look
same
washed
thing.
today.
Huh?
Or this year. So he sure did look washed this year at times.
Yeah. But Brady is another one. But who knows what that, I mean, I'm not saying you don't bring in Brady. First of all, Brady's not coming here.
No,
He's not coming to this team.
No.
Period. Okay. So then once you're past those two, those are the only real, and then Lamar Jackson, but the amount of stuff you got to give up to get to him is going to be purposefully outrageous.
Oh yeah.
It's literally going to be the Herschel Walker or Williams, the St. Louis Ricky Williams.
Yeah.
It's going to be those things where like you literally give up your entire draft for a guy, and you end up making the Cowboys of the early to mid '90s that's so dominant because they just took all these picks and built an awesome team with all these picks, and you were left with Herschel Walker, who was a good back, but he wasn't anything super duper crazy special in the pros, right?
Right. I know. Okay, so like Robert Hutchins says, Lamar feels made for us. I'm just saying, stylistically, I agree. Like I said, to me, Jackson's the only one because you got like Jarvis is over here.
He's
saying
still young enough.
Yeah, David Carr. I think you mean Derek Carr, but you hit the nail right on the head, John Boy. You hit the nail on the head. The only one I'm giving up picks for is Lamar Jackson because he's still in his 20s. I'm not bringing Rodgers in. I'm not bringing Brady in. I'm not bringing Tannehill in. I'm not bringing Derek Carr in. All these guys are right dead in the either well past their prime or dead in the middle of it. If I'm giving up assets that are going to hamstring my team going forward for the next 10 years or whatever,
Yep.
I want a guy who's going to be here and be productive for those 10 years.
The only other guy that I would trade this offseason would be if some of the newest talk that we've heard, about this would be like a Trey Lance for like.
Right. Yep.
Third.
I was going to bring Dre Murphy's comment. It says no to Carr, no to Jackson, no to Tannehill, no to Rodgers, and no to Lance. Lance is the only other one I would entertain. And that's if the rumors are true that you could trade a 3rd round pick for.
Yeah.
If it's just a 3rd,
I'll take
I
that.
will gladly put Trey Lance in the room to compete with Desmond Ridder and whatever other like off the street veteran to say, to complete that room. But yeah, I would do that.
Yeah.
But
I would like a good QB room if this were to happen and if we were to be able to get that would be Ridder as the presumed starter. Like in my mind, he is QB1 until otherwise, right? So you got Ridder, you trade for you give a 3rd for Lance, and then you bring in Jacoby Brissett. If you have that QB room with your veteran guy who can win games, who has played, who knows how to win in the league, and then you got Trey Lance, who's got all the potential in the world.
Right.
Just he hasn't quite put it together in Shanahan's system. Maybe it's easier for him in Arthur Smith's system. And then you've got Ridder, who, as we saw when he finally did get in there, every single week he tended to looked better every single week. And so you now give him a full offseason. You give Trey Lance an offseason of studying with the Falcons. And we don't even know like if he's going to be fully healthy or whatever at that time. But either way, like that would be like the perfect combo if we're talking about any kind of moves QB wise this offseason.
Joseph says, I'm good with Ridder for now. And I tend to agree. Fred Buzz thinks he's a future superstar. That still remains to be seen.
Me and Fred.
Right. No. That remains to be seen, in my opinion. But somebody put up a comment earlier. I think it was Chris. I'm scrolling up a little bit. Okay, here it is. He says, ride with Ridder, and if he's not the guy, the QBs in 24 are a step above. I don't know if I a step above, but there's the concept, and I joke about this all the time. I even made the joke today. I was told, and under no certain terms, that if we didn't get Justin Fields when the year we drafted Kyle Pitts, that there were no more quarterbacks coming out. None.
Yeah, none.
Like none. No more. But here we are talking about C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young and Will Levis. And next year we're talking about Caleb Williams, and we're talking about the May kid, Cade May, I think is his name, out at UNC. So
Drake May.
That's it. So miss me with the whole you got to get a quarterback right now.
Yeah, no.
Like straight up and down. Like I think like King's on it here. He says, I think Lamar isn't going anywhere. Ravens would have nothing for their fans to come see. He is Baltimore, and I think he gets what he wants unless Baltimore gets crazy deal. But I agree. I don't think he's going anywhere. But my deal with like this, every year there are quarterbacks that come out. Every year. And every year we have to convince ourselves this quarterback's worth it or not. You can laugh all you want to, but Kenny Pickett was taken in the 1st round, and there was like major rumors that Malik Willis would have been taken in the 1st round. You had Arizona a few years back take Josh Rosen and then turn around and draft Kyler Murray.
Yep.
Like you take a swing at your quarterback until you find him.
Yep.
And right now, I don't think they have fully swung on Ridder yet.
Yeah, they haven't gotten through their backswing yet.
Right.
Like they haven't even really made contact with the ball yet. They're on the downswing, and you gotta give Ridder. I'm not saying hand him the job. Bring in a vet, bring in Lance, whatever. Bring in some kind of competition and say, hey, you can tell Ridder like, hey, you're the starter right now, but we'll see how things go. If you want to keep your job, this is the competition you've got. And if he wins it outright, hey, great. Right. I want that, whether that's Ridder, Lance, I would prefer if we had those two guys there and say a Brissett, I would prefer it to be Ritter or Lance, one of the two. But either one, they win it, great. And then you give them that way they have a full, training camp, they have a full preseason, and then they have the entire year, barring injury, they have the entire year to take practice reps with the ones. They get all of the things that a normal QB1 gets, and just the repetition, doing it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And
Yep.
you never know what you're going to have until you try to do that. People are just not. I agree with. There was somebody said earlier that we showed it here. People are just not patient enough these days. And I want to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, not necessarily like I want the steel curtain defense. I want whatever. I want the Pittsburgh Steelers because they allow their coaches time.
Yep.
To really settle in, because they've had like 3 coaches over the last 40 years.
Yeah, I absolutely love the way Pittsburgh is ran. Like the Rooneys are amazing at how they run Pittsburgh and what they do and how they stand by their coaches and everything else. Because, I think even as much as we give crap to Quinn or whatever, who I don't think Quinn's call was to Dirk Cutter, if I'm just being honest. But I think if you'd have let Quinn work through his mistakes a little bit more,
yep.
Maybe you could have turned out differently. Same thing with Mike Smith when he hit his rough patch. If you'd have let him work through that rough patch a little bit, that's it would have just been interesting to see how it worked out. But that's not the NFL, right? That's not the vast majority of the NFL. The vast majority of the NFL is I'm going to fire you in a year. If you don't produce now, you're gone. So, but yeah, I think that this offseason is going to be fun. Somebody asked the question, what are significant free agents Atlanta can land with the cap space they got that will get them to stop finishing with mediocre records. There is a lot out there. First, we're going to have to see who's available. Right off the rip, you could get Jesse Bates or Von Bell at the safety position. There's some of the Saints players we named. There's the wide receiver 2 market's not that great. You're probably going to have to draft one of those, but you might have a good swing at a real center or a veteran center, which would help your rookie quarterback. So that would be a boon. And just
as far as the wide receivers go, the only guys that I'd really be super interested in as a wide receiver 2, DJ Chark, right. Juju Smith-Schuster,
maybe Jacoby Myers.
Out
of
New England. Yeah. So those would be guys that I would maybe look at. Offensive line, I haven't looked at enough of those guys just yet to see who's exactly available. I've glanced at them. But now on the defensive side, I mean, there's, assuming Daron Payne.
Right. Yes. That was the comment I just put up. King Sevens over talking about Daron Payne. I think if we can get our hands on Daron Payne, somebody put up DeMonte Jones earlier. He's another guy who would be amazing at defensive tackle.
Ioannidis.
Yeah, Ioannidis. There's some guys that we could get our hands on that would be awesome and amazing, and that would really bolster this team. And
I think we're going to see. Hopefully, in free agency, I think we're going to see probably the biggest splash is going to be defensive line. I think it's going to be a defensive tackle, whether that's Ioannidis, whether that's Daron Payne, whether that's the other one you talked about. It's already gone from my head.
Onyemata.
No, Draymond.
Draymond Jones or Draymond Jones. I think, yeah.
Draymond Jones. Onyemata is another guy.
There's some guys
it's going to be. But I think you're gonna get 1 or 2 of those guys, and then I could see us going and getting some at least one linebacker, 1 or 2 one linebacker and probably draft another one or so.
Right.
And then I do think we're looking to. I think we want to bring Richie Grant as more of a probably strong safety, and try to get somebody who's got that middle, that center field
Got that
stuff.
range.
But Grant can do both if necessary.
Yeah.
But so I do think Bates is probably, assuming he becomes a free agent, which they're not like right now. Their
Well,
number looks good for Cincinnati, but they're going to have to pay Burrow.
not just that. Last year they drafted Dax Hill, and I think they drafted Dax Hill with the thought process of letting Bates walk.
Yep.
So, I agree. The pass rush has to be addressed. Well, we took the first step in addressing that with the DC that we hired.
Yep.
Patrick Peterson would be interesting. If you were to move on from Casey Hayward, Patrick Peterson could be fun.
It was Byron. Oh, I forgot his
Byron
last
Jones.
name. No.
Or Byron Murphy.
Byron Murphy is
Byron
the name I've seen pop up from Arizona.
Right.
I could see. I would like to see him. Patrick Peterson, I wouldn't be upset with. Jalen Ramsey, I wouldn't be upset with.
I wouldn't like. He's gonna want a lot of money. I think Ramsey.
Yeah. Well, either one. Patrick Peterson probably is the same way, unless we can get him here on like a prove it deal. I mean, right. Why would Patrick Peterson take a prove it deal?
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, like Chris says, Bates and Von Bell are both free agents, and Von Bell's got like ties to Nielsen from his days at the Saints. So it'd be interesting. But my guy, we have bumped up well over an hour. We've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. And your boy ain't had dinner
awesome.
yet. What's that?
Neither have I. Come on, man.
Look,
we got the,
I'm used to eating dinner at 5 o'clock.
I'm messing with
It's 8:30. Fat boys.
Well, man, I am so looking forward to once we get all of the rest of our coaches in, once we get past the Senior Bowl, once we get past the Super Bowl, and we can really start honing in on those free agents and actually who we believe is going to be available.
Yeah, that's going to be.
I want Daron Payne so bad. He literally, if he becomes available, he should be our number one goal to get. Because I don't necessarily think that Chicago is going to look at him. I think that if they're going to go with anything, they're either going to go with a quarterback at 1, or they're going to trade down to 2 or 3.
I think
let somebody else take a quarterback.
I think them looking at a quarterback is smoke. I think they're going to trade out of that pick.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think especially if we're talking they're only moving back a spot or 2.
Yeah,
and they can look at whoever's coming up number 1 is going for Stroud or whoever, right? And then likely number 2. Who's number 2?
Right now it's the Texans.
Texans, they're going to want a quarterback. They got a new coach. They're going to want a quarterback.
They're going to want their guy.
Because their defense, while not super great or anything like that, their defense is okay. I don't think they need to do quite as much work there. Their offense is where they need to do the work. And so I think they're going to go. So I think you're going to see quarterback 1 and 2. If Chicago moves back to 3, they're going to take Jalen Carter.
Probably. Yeah. I think your chances of getting Carter are slim. Very, very, very slim.
Very.
So, yeah, somebody like a Daron Payne or Draymond Jones or whoever, a DT is essential. So, yeah, I'm definitely down with that. Maybe we can
but now I'm hoping, because I really want, I've kind of come around, and I think for the current DC, I think this is the guy. If we're going to go edge, I'm coming around on Lucas Van Ness.
Oh yeah. Lucas Van Ness. Somebody brought him up earlier. He's a guy who I could easily see them going with that. So yeah. Yep.
But yeah, it's get somebody like him, and then maybe your Asai guy is the second, maybe.
That would be nice. Somebody like that. Keon Benton, what have you. But make sure if you're on Twitter to follow us on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128. Jonathan?
Jonathan M. Holder.
And like I'll be posting like stuff like updates from Senior Bowl practices, stuff like that. And then like I said, keep your eye on the channel. I'll have a video out like kind of wrapping up my Senior Bowl
Yep.
trip.
Yeah, be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for like I said, like last week we or yesterday we put out a tweet like asking for like questions for the
Right.
Q&A
Yep.
segment. If you want to make sure like that your question does get asked, we will do our best to go over everything that happens and everything that comes to us through Twitter. How has Toby been?
Yeah, I say Jarvis is asking how Toby's been. Toby's been doing really good. I talked to him the other day. I actually got his opinion on the Nielsen hire. He liked it. But yeah, he's doing really good, and like he's enjoying being able to just like focus on his family, which is what he was wanting to do. So, and being told to go eat.
I'm
So
just
that's
gonna
what
say.
Huh?
I'm gonna say
Oh,
I
he
would
said
be
he
down
just
with
checked.
Epinesa.
I'd be like he's been rumored to be, he's not a free agent, but he's been rumored to be a cap casualty, and I wouldn't mind having Epinesa
Yep.
myself. All right, I'm leaving.
All right.
I'm hanging up.
Go
I'm going
get
away.
you some food, sir. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we love you guys, and we will see you again next Tuesday, same time, same channel.
Same bat. Yep. Same bat time. Same bat channel.
Absolutely, pound for pound. We're here for you all every single week. So
It is, as always, Falcons fans, rise up.
rise up.